Coming up on today's episode, for the first time in, 8 years? SpaceX loses an engine in a launch, Model Y deliveries begin, and Tesla shut down the Fremont factory, and none of this matters because the world is ending. Let's get ludicrous. Hey, real quick before we jump into this episode, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Skillshare. Thanks to Skillshare for supporting our ludicrous future. Hey, it's a new year, and many of you out there, like most people, have some kinds of resolutions or goals for 2020, and if you do have something like that, Skillshare is a great place to start. Skillshare is an online learning platform where you can learn pretty much any freaking thing on the planet. Seriously, if you're curious about it, there's an expert out there who's created an entire course around it on Skillshare. And all you have to do is just sit there in your pajamas and soak it all in. From dog grooming to cooking to business, design, and more. One good place to start might be the Productivity Masterclass by Thomas Frank. Thomas is a YouTuber and productivity expert, and he's developed this class to help you be more organized and make better use of your time. After all, time is the most precious commodity we have. Even more precious than Ben's biceps. You can give Skillshare a try for free for 2 months if you sign up at Skillshare.com/OLF. You'll get unlimited access to thousands of classes, and after the free trial, it's only $10 a month for a yearly subscription. Right now, millions of people are learning and growing on Skillshare, so don't get left behind. Go to Skillshare.com/OLF. We'll put the link down in the description below. Go check it out.
And now, back to our ludicrous programming.
Hey there, and welcome to Our Ludicrous Future. This is the podcast where we talk about all the cool future stuff that's happening today that's going to make tomorrow totally ludicrous. I'm Joe Scott, Answers Joe YouTube channel. With me, again, is Tim Dodd.
Sorry, this is part 2 because some of us have had some problems. Because, hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, and I am, who knows where I am at this point, but I finally have my studio mic, so you won't be listening to me through a lav mic like somebody.
Yo, it's Ben Sullins from the Teslanomics and the things, and I am on a lav mic, so sorry guys if I sound a bit different because I'm home recording. I had to move my studio here because my building has been evacuated from the event. So I am not allowed to be in my building any longer. So
you're back to making videos in your she shed.
In the she shed, yep. This is Jenny's photography studio that I've commandeered. While we try to social media distance ourselves from people and the things.
Yeah.
You know?
And Joe, you're just going to be working from home like normal?
all those times you were like, you need to get a space. Who's laughing now?
Yeah. Yeah. Who's laughing? Not me, really.
Nobody's laughing for the foreseeable future.
Well, and everyone in our Discord channel, we probably have like a record number of listeners because so many people are like out of their routines right now and doing things differently. Hi, Discord, everyone down there. How are you guys? Say hi in the chat if you're
Captain
listening
Kurt,
in.
Trevor,
And they're like, hello
Armand.
Again.
Yeah.
No, but
how are
Armand
you?
Bringing the
How are you three guys?
Here.
How are you three guys doing? Like, I don't want to linger on this too much because I think everyone's already like, this is all everyone's going to hear, and we want to talk about some other things. And we've got some stuff to talk about this week. But just in general, like, give me your quick little update on the past like week or two of your lives, because I've been gone and busy.
It's been tricky with my son home from school, which is a new thing. So now we have to deal with him. Still have childcare, which is nice. So she's still coming. But yeah, now that I had to move my studio out because of the event, because the whole building is shut down. Yeah, just things are going to get interesting. Luckily, it's so weird because the timing of the event here matches up perfectly with the Model Y stuff. So it's like on YouTube, I've been like, I put out 3 videos in the past 5 days, and they're all crushing it. Meanwhile, there's the world is like collapsing around us. And I'm like, I don't know, should I just keep making stuff for people to watch that's not, about that? Like,
that's the thing is, like, I think right now people, like, think about it. All, like, network TV and stuff is basically shut down because they can't all get together to make stuff. All productions have halted. YouTubers are about the only ones that can still crank out fresh content for people to distract themselves, to entertain themselves. And maybe this is a good time as a YouTuber to be able to, like, be cranking out some content.
It's an interesting time to do what we're doing. Yeah, definitely.
Which is also an interesting time because I'm guessing there's a lot of people that are going to be trying to profit off of like spreading fake news or like just constantly at least YouTube's demonetizing videos that are specifically about the event or the happening or whatever, because I think there's probably people out there that would be like, don't listen to anything, like making horrid claims.
Yeah.
I guess that's probably the best way we can protect ourselves from that process.
I need to step away from Facebook because I found myself just rage scrolling over the last few days and God, somebody, this is the problem, guys. Somebody shared something that was like, don't take ibuprofen because it makes it worse. Well, there's been some things that have said that, and there's a lot of things that have said the opposite of that. And somebody got in the comments and was like, well, actually, that came from like one doctor in France that had one anecdotal thing. It's actually the data isn't there or whatever. And then this person responded, was like, well, I just figured it couldn't hurt to share it. And I'm like, no, it can hurt to share misinformation. That's the problem.
Have we learned nothing?
Maybe this will be a good, honestly, this will be a time for people to step back. It might reset some of our like social norms and our constructs of like how we absorb information, for better or worse. It might make it so people are even more triggered and more able to just like listen to whoever they hear, or it might be a time where like people are like, okay, we need to actually listen to experts right now. Like listen to people.
You crawled in my brain when you said that. That's exactly what I've been thinking a lot. It's like maybe finally we'll wake up and be like, listening to experts is a good thing.
Yeah. Like,
and then you have the guy that drove around all of Louisville buying all of the, all of Kentucky buying all the hand sanitizer so he could sell it on eBay. So, humans. I don't know.
Humans.
The jury's still out on whether or not humans were a good idea, basically. I don't know.
So, I know this is a little woo-woo, and I would never actually say this in a video or anything, but let's talk about it here.
You're on video, right? You got a camera pointed at you.
But I have you guys to temper me.
Okay.
Do you ever think that maybe the Earth is like a living organism? Not a conscious one necessarily, but a living organism, and pandemics like this are sort of its immune system wiping out the thing.
Trying to fight us off.
I mean,
yeah,
sort
it's not
of.
A terrible.
I mean, yeah, in a way, I think that's kind of how, how life works, really. Just cycles,
Isn't there a theory? I think, Joe, we've talked about it before, where like what we observe here, we think of as, how it is. And so like the universe to us is infinitely large. But if you were a quark or something that was the size of an atom, my toenail would be infinitely large to you. Mm-hmm. So like, could we in our entire, our existence, our planet, our universe be actually just like part of a toenail?
Oh, I've always thought that. I've always thought it's like an infinite loop. I think if you zoom out enough, from our universe, all of a sudden you're looking and all of a sudden you realize, oh, that's just a quark or something, and then it just keeps going in a loop. I think that.
Yeah, cool. Like every time we try to like find smaller things, we do. Right?
And eventually we get small enough that we're looking into another universe. That's what I've always wanted.
Yeah, so
next thing you know, you're waving to yourself, looking at a microscope.
And to bring that back down to earth a little bit, I have had conversations with some friends that are a bit woo-woo, and they've talked about like our society or just like our world. Think about like cars driving on a freeway is like blood cells traveling down a vein. Mm. And we may think of it like, oh no, that's a car. But that's like probably what a blood cell thinks too, right?
They're just all honking in traffic. Get out of here!
Right?
Yeah.
No, like 100%. Yeah. Well, like when you look at it, you go, actually, like if you accept a little bit of abstraction from the details of what the thing is, the behaviors are mimic each other very closely.
Yeah. Have you ever seen those? And I mean, this just might be the way things work in.
This is the way.
This is the way in nature or whatever. But like if you look at the alveoli in the lungs or the bronchial tubes in the lungs and then compare it to like the root system of plants and stuff like that, there's a lot of similarities and rivers, the way rivers kind of spread out and fork and stuff. It's there's these patterns that sort of keep recurring in us and in nature,
It's cool.
Right.
So we got into a weird place here.
Speaking of patterns, can I tell you guys about? I haven't updated you guys with my car.
Yeah, I wanted to hear about that. What's up?
Ooh.
So
did you get a really cool new pattern on the outside of it, or what? What could this possibly be?
So the saga is actually not over.
Oh, geez.
For those of you wondering, I am back in Iowa, and this is me trying to like kind of in between places because I'm working on figuring out. Where I'm going to be in the next year. I was kind of working on some stuff in Florida to get together. And right now, at this exact moment, all of that's on pause. Mm-hmm. But I did finally make it back to Iowa. and with my car. But here's the deal. So, okay. The full story for those of you that aren't familiar is a month and a half ago, basically 5 weeks ago, I drove the car from a parking lot to another parking lot about a block away in some rain.
What were you thinking?
I don't know. Drove it through probably like 3 or 4 inches of rainwater, maybe 5, I don't know. But, you know, not like flooded, just like rainwater, not even above the curb. I could still see the curb. The next morning, woke up, the car was totally dead. Got it towed using the Tesla service app while I went to go to the launch. By the time I was done with the launch, Tesla had picked up the car, delivered it from Cocoa Beach to Orlando. And then I got a loaner car for about 2 weeks. They said the car was done. Went to go pick the car up because I was originally going to drive home for that funeral that I was had to attend 2 weeks ago now. And when I get there to pick up the car, they're like, actually, the GPS isn't working. Your backup cameras, stuff is just weird, and we can't get it to like reboot. And then all of a sudden, like I'm sitting there in the waiting room, they're like, and actually, we can't even get it to drive now. I'm like, guys, I'm about to drive 1,400 miles home. Can you please make sure this works? Like,
you're like, how about that one? See, that one looks fine. Give me that one.
Well, and that's the thing is I couldn't leave the state with a rental car, nor would I really want to, because if I had to return it back, that'd be 4 days of driving that would negate me. Like,
no. Throw that thing on Starship, send it back.
So that's what I said. I was like, guys, what if I fly one way home? Can you deliver my car to me when it's done? And they're like, nope. I'm like, really? Like, think about these circumstances for me. You're going to ask me to fly round trip now to come back to get my car. And they were still like, nope, sorry, we don't have transport. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have transport? Of course you have transport options. Like, put the car on a flatbed.
$40,000 in Uber credits.
Yeah. Well, they did give me, luckily, while I was gone, they did give me $100 a day in Uber credits, which helped, but still not. I only used $80 of it or something.
Doesn't get you from Iowa to Orlando, though.
No. So I flew home, attended the funeral, flew back down to Orlando to get my car. And here's the thing. I actually brought my parents down with me because they were helping me try to look for places to relocate the majority of my stuff. And so we've landed at like 10 p.m. and they told me they'd have the car out and ready to go, and they did. So we get to the Tesla Center at like 11:30 or something and go pick it up, get it up on the highway. And all of a sudden, boop, 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 wouldn't go above 60 miles an hour. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? And at
this point, you have a new battery pack.
Brand new battery pack.
Wow.
And a hardware 3 full self-driving chip. And I'm just like, no way. And here I'm like, I'm really disappointed because, my parents are looking at buying a Tesla. And here we are just like in service hell, basically. And so we limped it out to Cocoa Beach where we were staying at 60 mile an hour only. Luckily in the morning, so I'm texting, trying to get a hold of someone at Tesla. Nothing, of course. And in the morning, like, I'm like, guys, what do I do? Like, well, bring it back. I'm like, that's an hour and a half away from where I am. And like, I'm only out here for one more day. I'm trying to get home. Can you come pick it up? They're like, no. So it was just like the biggest nightmare. So eventually, the car in the morning was fine because I think it was just an air bubble in the coolant system, and sometimes those need to settle out. When you totally flush a coolant system, you run the pumps and everything, and sometimes a bubble can get stuck at like a low point. And that's, I think, what happened. I took it back anyway. They still purged the coolant system and they topped it off, made sure it was good to go. And it was good to go. So then I finally get to driving it home and I could not exceed 240 miles of range. Even in I know, Ben, you say that that's like your normal thing because you have those big rims and stuff, but.
Well, 240 is pretty low, I would say.
240 is really, I was getting over 300 on my way down.
Yeah,
in
you
similar
have the
weather
aero
conditions.
Rims?
I have the aero rims.
Yeah, you should.
I've gotten over 300 miles on a single charge before.
And I would say if you were driving 85 miles an hour in the wind, 240 would be expected. In fact, when I did my second test where I drove till it died, I think we got right around 240, 242 or something. But literally, there was a point I got out of the car and it was 40 mile per hour sustained winds, and you're like, oh yeah, that'll do that.
But what was your watt hour per mile during that trip? Like well over 300, right?
Yeah, well over 300.
Like 330,
my
340.
Average is high though, and so I did learn this because I think we've talked about it before. I'm like, dude, that's crazy. No, like my average is this. It didn't really dawn on me how big of a difference it made, but I have those super high performance rims.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, not
and
rims,
those sticky
but
tires.
Tires, yeah.
Yeah.
So the tires are extremely grippy. They're like the grippiest tires you can buy.
Right.
And that
Of course,
has
it
a
has
big impact.
a lot of rolling resistance. They're made to stick to the road.
Yeah.
So what's your average watt hour per mile?
311.
Okay. Yeah, mine's like 270.
Yeah. I think, well, see, I'm
And so
about,
on this trip, I was at 274 for an entire thing, and I was at like 7% at 238 miles or something. Way below rating. Way below even like when you factor in the actual watt hour per mile.
Yeah.
Like that's still like 8% off or something.
And the weather wasn't insane or anything, right?
No, I mean, the weather
mild.
should be factored into the watt hour per mile. When weather's bad, your watt hour per mile gets worse too.
It'll go up.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So like it should be factored in. If you have a headwind, your car will be showing you that it's having to exert more energy. Therefore, your watt hour per mile will go up. So at 274, we know how much the car was consuming.
Oh, got it. So you're saying that the watt hour per mile was like normal-ish.
It was normal. I should have got high 200s, no problem.
And when you charged it fully, it got all the way up to 300. It was saying that you had 300 miles, or it would just charge up to.
Yep, it'll say I have 300 miles of range.
Right. Okay.
When I charge it to 100%, and the car's supposed to have 315. Wow. So right there is a problem because it's brand new battery pack, and then beyond that, it still won't even get close to 300. Still. So we had at one point a gap that was 170 miles was all or something between superchargers, which isn't a lot. It's like in between Springfield, Illinois, and Davenport, Iowa. We couldn't make it. We had to stop at a destination charger and add like 10 miles, 20 miles to it just to make sure we could get there safely.
Was there? Now there's a spot. So I drive basically to Phoenix and back is my longest trip I typically do, and there's Yuma, which is right in between here and there. And that, I think, if you could fly there, is around 170, 180 miles. But there's a mountain range between here and there. So you eat up a good, when I had my original Model S, it had 200 miles of range. My first trip to Phoenix, I'm like, sure, 170 miles, I got plenty. Nope, not a chance. Not even close. And I learned later that, at least in a Model S, it has to say 240 or 250 miles of range, rated range, to make it there, even though it's only 170 miles. So,
right.
But this one doesn't sound like Midwest. It's pretty flat, right?
Very. I mean, there's only one spot on our way home, and on the border of basically Georgia and Tennessee, where it's hilly, but still, I mean, the condition, so now I'm waiting. I do finally have. So after all of this, when I finally got home, basically, and by the way, on the way home, I'm trying to call the service center. I called that service center. I called one in Nashville. I called one in Minneapolis. Constantly, I'm using the app to try to get a hold of someone. I could not get a hold of anyone. And I'm sitting here. We're struggling to get. It took us 3 days to get home instead of 2.
Wow.
So not only had I spent 2 weeks of extra hotels, I had to fly round trip, and then it took me 3 days to get home instead of 2. So this was just a nightmare, and I wasn't even able to get a hold of a single person on the anything to really be able to figure it out. So when you triple the amount of cars on the road in the last year, and you don't triple your service centers that are already behind,
Yeah. Well,
there's going to be some problems.
I don't know if anyone's done that. I've looked at data behind superchargers and the growth of that, and it, despite what some maybe more hardcore Tesla fan channels may tell you, it has slowed dramatically. I also don't think we need 800 supercharger stations in LA alone. I think that they're more important in the travel sector, and where you're actually driving and need them. So. But I haven't seen any data around service centers. I know here in my neck of the woods, we had one a year ago. Now we have 3. So they've done a tremendous amount here. But also this is Southern California, where it's a huge concentration of them. So where is the car now? So what is the current?
Has this been resolved at all?
So the car is with me. I have a personal guy that's going to be following up with me in a week after he sees the data of the car. Of course, it's not being driven right now, though, so I don't know how much it'll tell him.
Just go drive it around.
I probably will have to at some point, just to put some miles on it to see what the update is, and they're going to hopefully let me know what's going on.
Dude,
the other thing I should say about superchargers, though, is that the superchargers are, from what I'm seeing, my entire route, they are increasing rapidly, which is great. There's been a lot of construction, a lot of new permits taken out. especially in these holes that I'm like, I gotta get, like, for instance, Peoria, Hannibal, Missouri, Council Bluffs, Iowa, some of these, like, you know, or Mount Pleasant, I think, like some of these smaller areas where I'm like, that's a huge 200 plus mile gap. You know, I'd love to be able to fill that in, and they're filling those in as we speak. And they're adding a ton of V3s.
I think that's where it should be. I think that's where the investment needs to go, really.
Yeah.
Like, people in LA will be upset about it because there's not one, you know, on every corner.
Right.
And you're like, there's still 13 in LA. Okay, get over it.
I think
like,
LA should be, people need to, around populated urban areas, we need to be focusing more on destination chargers so that people can charge
the
at
thing
home
that sucks
or work.
about those, though, is they're always at businesses that don't let you just use them. You know?
Well, I'm saying, like,
be,
I think, like, workers, you know, employees and stuff like that need to be putting in more, and and apartment complexes need to be putting in more. Then supercharger needs won't be nearly as high because people will have plenty of range for their day every day.
Yeah, and there's a lot of local kind of ordinances and legislation going in place. I know in San Diego we made that last year or so, and I think maybe all over the state. Like, if you're a new apartment building, you have to put in X number of them. And in fact, I think it was in 2016 we passed a law here in California that if you if you're trying to get one, let's say you are living in an apartment and you're saying, calling them up saying, hey, I want to install one, they cannot deny you. Like they can say, look, you need to pay for it, but beyond that, they're not allowed to say no. Yeah, so it's illegal basically for them to deny it on any without some hey, we would have to upgrade the transformer in the building and that would cost us $3 million.
Right.
So if you got $3 million, let's do this. But I mean, so obviously, you know, there's a lot of older buildings and stuff and things that just it won't work. So outside of that, you should be able to get one installed, but there may be a cost associated with it. So,
well, that's cool. Yeah, like I said, though, I think supercharging in dense urban areas, like, at this point, it's probably let's stop focusing on that, and then work on destination chargers like that. And then these road trip areas are filling in very quickly, from what I can tell. I think by the end of the year, my road tripping ability will be so much easier than it was, you know, all of last year. So
and they're on. Well, I mean, it's still very early in the year, but yeah, last year was the lowest amount of new superchargers in the past 3 years.
Yeah.
And it was down by 70%. So it's actually fallen a lot.
Right.
But I don't know if that's because they're switching to V3 or if they're just, you know, you've hit a point where you don't need to build as many. You know, you can have 6 at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. You don't necessarily need 50 there. Right. So I don't know. So, you know, there has to be some strategy there and all that. Honestly, though, I think the money should be going into the service side more than anything right now.
Yep. So there you go. Hopefully by the end of the week, I'll have someone else following up, and hopefully soon my car will be totally back to normal. But yeah, it was a saga.
Well, at least it didn't lose an engine.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Jeez. I almost was totally blind to what you're even talking about.
You guys are welcome for that beautiful segue.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even know what you're talking. I was
Scott.
Yeah, what? I mean, it can't lose an engine, right? Because it's
a
so
motor.
Okay, here we go. Good transition. Yesterday morning, was that yesterday morning? I don't remember. We saw SpaceX actually lose their first time losing an engine during a mission that we've known about, at least during, you know, ascent, at least since 2012. I think the last time was commercial CRS-1, which was their, I don't remember, the 4th flight of the Falcon 9. And back then it actually used the Merlin 1C engine, so it was a slightly older variant. You know, these are 1Ds, but cranked out to the max. Now, one thing to keep in mind is this was the 5th flight of this particular booster, and it was using this was for another Starlink mission. This is the kind of the 5th operational Starlink mission. So it was an internal SpaceX mission, right, where this problem failed, which is great because it really does show that they're, you know, willing to push the envelope of their vehicles' reusability in-house, you know, on their own payloads, on their own systems. So this had a reused fairing, which again, it's good for them to get practice using fairings. And then it also used a booster for the 5th time. Now what's cool, so there we go. That was the frame. I was waiting for it to pop up. So you can see all of a sudden and I totally missed it during the actual webcast. I was not able to catch it. I didn't notice, but it is quite a big, there's a full blown piece of something that looks
yeah,
like it
you can
pops
see
out
debris
here.
coming off.
Yep, and then a huge flash like that, and then a bunch of white smoke for a second, and then it kind of goes back to normal after that. Now, this is already praise to the design of having 9 engines, is the idea that it has full redundancy, and as a matter of fact, at this point, it's so close to MECO. Look at in the timeline down here. You can see how close it is to the, to the end of its flight, or to the end of the booster having to be burning. Because the engines are throttled down anyway, it's no big deal to throttle up the remaining engines. That's the beauty of it. As a matter of fact, the Falcon 9 can lose one of its 9 engines at any point, even literally right when it leaves the pad. If it went, had some big event with one of the engines, they can shut one down right away, and it will actually still be able to perform, at least for most missions, the majority of missions, it would still be able to get what it needs to do in order to get into its payload into space. And the cool thing is, in this case, say it had something ridiculous, because they normally have so many extra margins in the vehicle anyway to be able to land. The cool thing is with this, say it lost its margins to land, it actually still has extra margin in the fact that it has spare fuel to land. So worst goes to worst, they could burn longer with fewer engines and just totally negate the landing. I don't know if it's for sure programmed into it, but that's something that an expendable vehicle can't do, because they literally go to basically fuel depletion on a normal vehicle. But this vehicle leaves a good third of its fuel for that landing burn. So say they have something go wrong, and all of a sudden they need to burn longer. All of a sudden, whoop, they could continue to burn through that landing and just ditch landing, but not fail the mission, which is huge, because some of these missions can cost customers hundreds of millions of dollars, as opposed to we'll say $15 million that the booster costs SpaceX. Like, they'd rather, the prime mission is getting the thing into space and getting it to its destination. So pretty cool that it could suffer an engine anomaly like this. And this is basically exactly what happened then. Because I don't know if it's necessarily because it lost its engine on ascent or what, but then we actually saw it. We lost it during descent as well, though, unfortunately. So this is all we saw all of a sudden. We did see what I like to call the bad luck ice, or it actually could potentially be a piece of debris, because as it begins to re-enter the atmosphere, normally you do kind of see ice chunks and things fly by. So look at this right there. Do you see that thing floating by? Mm-hmm. So we see stuff, anything that you see flying past a rocket at this point in space is never... It always comes from the rocket, right? Because your relative velocity, in order to even be able to see it on camera, it would have to source from the vehicle, because otherwise you're flying like 5 times faster than a bullet. You're not going to be seeing other satellites. You're not going to be seeing, airplanes and things, because people are like, was that a UFO, or was that another Starlink satellite that it flew past? No, like you're not going to see
satellite.
This is basically a GoPro type of camera almost, a wide angle lens. You're only going to see things that are relatively similar velocities. And so you can see this chunk fly by, and we've seen ice chunks, but this might be an actual piece of debris. I have no idea.
Could that have possibly been the piece that we saw break off earlier and just kind of like was in a lower trajectory, and then as the rocket came down, it like went past it?
No, you'd be off by literally like hundreds or like 100 kilometers because that little extra 10 seconds of velocity change will mean it will never catch up to each other.
So this definitely came off of the rocket.
It originated, from the booster. Okay. So we don't know for sure if that was from a piece of debris or a piece of ice or whatever, but I saw that fly by and I even joked on my stream that look, we saw some of that bad luck ice, because we've had the previous 2 boosters that have failed had a big piece come out from their grid fins, totally, and it was ice. Totally coincidental, I think, that CRS-16 and the previous Starlink mission that failed had a piece of ice like that. Then we see this, and I'm like, oh, bad luck. And then, of course, it ended up not landing. So, crazy. So they did lose another booster, basically 2 in a row for this mission profile.
That's right. The last one that didn't land was another Starlink one, wasn't it?
Another Starlink mission. Yeah. And now this is where things kind of got wonky. Normally it doesn't like wiggle around like this, and there's some speculation, like Scott Manley had some speculation that perhaps it even was pouring out gas from one of the an engine that shut down, because it was dirtier than normal. And then right here, watch how much it shimmies after engine shutdown. Way more than normal. So in other words, at this point, it's clearly off. It's clearly off of its normal trajectory. And the grid fins are like, okay, get back on course. And because it was trying to have to do so much, it's likely that it just absolutely was way too far off and ditched itself or something.
Yeah.
So that was crazy. And we did get some updates from Elon because, Eric Berger on Twitter goes, Falcon 9 rocket first stage self-quarantined itself in the ocean. And Elon responded to that and said, yeah, there was also an early engine shutdown on ascent, but it didn't affect orbital insertion. Shows value of having 9 engines. Thorough investigation needed before next mission. So obviously they weren't intending to lose an engine, and they weren't necessarily intending. And do you remember how it's on Sunday, they actually got to T-0.
Yeah.
Hit launch, basically, fired up the engines, and then had to cancel the, they aborted at that point before they let go of and they normally do that, they fire up the engines, they ramp them up, and no big deal. And then once everything's good to go, then the vehicle realizes it's ready to go to space. They let go, and it commits to launch. But they actually aborted at T0, basically. So I asked, was it in any way related to the scrub the other day? Same engine that was having problems? And Elon said, last launch aborted due to slightly high power. So an engine was actually, for some reason, overperforming. Possibly, as in possibly related, but not obviously related to today. The vehicle has seen a lot of wear, so today isn't a big surprise. Life leader rockets are used only for internal missions. Won't risk non-SpaceX satellites. And I said, yeah.
Leader, meaning the 5th time it's launched or whatever.
Yep, because this was the most flown booster they've done, and they're basically pushing their boosters with internal Starlink missions, since they can then see what's going wrong, what's failing. Worst goes the worst, they lose their own satellites and they lose their own booster. But it's a good way to really start to figure out what is going to fail first. And in this case, it was actually a reliable Merlin engine, saw apparently at the end of its life. So now they're probably getting more data on this is total speculation again, but perhaps they're getting into this world where they're like, hey, let's not refurbish and see what actually fails. Maybe. Total speculation, because I'm assuming there are some refurbishments, but why wouldn't you start doing, pushing it in that sense to see okay, what is actually the thing that goes wrong if we push these beyond, our normal envelope?
So are Starlink missions continuing as normal then?
So I think
because they're going up every other week or something, right?
Based on this, I think he's going to be, he's going to be vehicles won't life leader rockets used for won't mission. Oh wait, what did he say? He goes, thorough investigation needed before next mission. So I'm guessing they're probably going to really double check. They know what went wrong, know how much refurbishment they did, know how much more they need to do for other missions. So I'm guessing. I don't know what we'll see a bigger delay in manifest, whether it'll be this or the event that's happening in the world that, might cause some other things to slow down. I'm guessing a lot of spaceflight missions will be pushed back a month or two in general on top of and/or factor in this. Who really knows?
Now, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I saw that the Crew Dragon mission is still on for May.
Currently slated for May. They mentioned it is now mid to late May instead of early May. So it already has slid back 2 weeks to 4 weeks as of now. So I'm expecting that a lot of events will be pushed back a month or two, is my guess.
And is this why SLS is delayed again?
This is why, yeah.
We figured it out. SLS was just living in the future.
Yeah, that's right.
So I wanted to bring this up because we're getting some more reports out of what is that called? The OIG. What does that actually mean? The Office of Inspector General. There we go. So let me pull this up. So there's been a lot of reports where the Office of Inspector General is basically what's that called when you look over something and you investigate it and it's like an audit. An audit.
Investigate? No.
Yeah, they're basically auditing SLS a lot lately, and we're seeing a lot of these reports come out. And one of them is about this tower here. There's the mobile launch tower, or the what do they call it? They actually call it the just a mobile launch tower. So this is the first one they built, and they built this for the Block 1B basically, which is or the Block 1, which is what's currently being built for the first couple missions. And then they were working on building a second one for the Block 1B, which are slightly taller. here's the thing. They basically came out saying that the OIG noted that so far it's cost at least $927 million for this tower.
For the tower.
For the tower. Oh, gosh. And which is like way more. So then, okay, for the, which was $234 million for the development of the original tower that this was built around for the Antares or the Ares rocket. And then $693 million for SLS related designs and modification. So the original tower was slated to cost $234 million. Because they've modified it to work for SLS, that's cost $693 million.
And how much is a Starship launch? Just one launch going to cost?
Likely $5 million. Well, aspirationally $5 million. I'm going to go ahead and go on record and say at first, while the market's used to paying $100, $200, $400 million for a service like that, they'll charge $100 million for a service like that.
So you still, at this price, could launch it 10 times.
Yeah.
For the price of the tower.
For the price of just the tower that hasn't done anything yet. And they're trying to build a second one.
And they brought the pie charts.
They brought in pie charts. There you go, man. Are you happy?
That's how you know they're trying to lie to you. If anyone shows you a pie chart, they're trying to confuse you. That's how it works, just to be clear.
But look at this. Design errors made up 39% of the cost. Design errors. What? A lot of this, though, is kind of related because they have changed the SLS so much and had to go through. Anytime the SLS changes, their tower has to change. And or if SLS is like, oh, by the way, I guess we're not going to do the 1B. We're just going to fly a couple with 1A or the block 1. Okay, let's change the tower. And every time it changes, they have to re-outfit the stupid tower. So here you can see block 1 versus block 1B. 1B's taller, stretch tanks. But here's the other thing. So, okay, basically, this sucks. We're just throwing money at a tower that might only be used a handful of times. As Seth says in our Discord, the kicker is it's only going to be used for 4 launches at best. Yeah. It's currently scheduled for 4 launches.
So that's what, 150 million per launch or something like that?
Right.
Just for the tower.
Well, it's 250 basically.
Well, and it probably costs money to operate the tower on top of it, right? To
it's probably
move it or something or whatever it does,
So in other words, $250,000 are going away every time. And remember, if you the block 1 version can only do about 95 tons to orbit. If you threw away a Falcon Heavy, it can do 60 tons or something. So there's very few missions that actually require 95 tons to low Earth orbit. In other words, and a Falcon Heavy, I think you can buy expended versions of it for just over $100 million.
Yeah.
So the tower alone is over double that. Forget the $2 billion rocket.
This reminds me of this gap in technology. Reminds me of when the cloud kind of came into play in the tech world and all of us working in tech. All of a sudden, it didn't cost $6,000 to add 2 gigabytes of hard drive space
right.
to a server, which seriously, that's what it would cost. And we all were like, my phone has 128 gigabytes. How the hell can this be? And then the cloud came out and it was Amazon. And it's like, oh, you want more storage? Just click here 5 times. And it's $2.50 a month for 500 gigabytes.
Right.
You're like, oh God. Yeah, everything is going to go that way very soon.
Yep. So, and that's basically what more reports are saying. So this is, so we had that previous article from NASA Spaceflight, but Spaceflight now has an article kind of going over the overall costs of SLS in general. And basically it's getting pushed back. Even the test run is getting pushed back for the tank. It just keeps slipping in schedule. And every time it slips in schedule, Boeing actually makes more money.
Of course.
Because it's cost plus contracting. So it's insane. I can't believe this is still getting funded at this point. A year ago, I was still like, okay, actually probably even in November when we're finally seeing stuff happen, I was like, finally, we're seeing some stuff happen. I'm excited. This is what SLS needs. But when it all comes together now, as of December 2019, NASA had obligated $14.8 billion on the SLS program and is expected to spend a total of $17.4 billion by Artemis 1 launch date. be referring to no earlier than November 2020, which no way will the first SLS launch in November 2020. So basically they're saying now it'll be like 18.3 billion because it'll slip to at least spring 2021. Over 2 years later than its initial planned launch date, with total SLS program rising to 18.3 billion. So if a second launch Artemis date slips to 2023, the additional cost driving the SLS program will be 22.8 billion just for 2 rockets.
And you wonder why lawmakers and taxpayers are skeptical of bailing out companies like Boeing when you see this kind of crap.
That's I'm going to go on record and say I'm over it. I'm officially over it.
Time to call it?
I think it's just, at this point, there's no way. There's no way it'll make sense. You know, and we keep talking about going back to the moon sustainably. That's one of the things Jim Bridenstine keeps saying. Yes, I agree. What is sustainable about, even when things are all set up for SLS, about a $2 billion launch? How is that sustainable? When we could do that same mission profile with literally 2 or 3 Falcon Heavies that cost $150 million? So at most, it's 25% of the price, and it's readily available today with no more development. The only thing they'd have to develop is some systems for in-orbit docking. That stuff's honestly, at this point, trivial compared to fixing another launch structure, continuing to test this mega rocket that has no real destination and no real purpose.
I feel like when New Glenn and Starship become a thing, like it would be asinine to even consider that anymore.
What does he mean by sustainable?
Obviously, like, going to the moon will never be sustainable-ish, but we're trying to make improvements over the Apollo era, because the Apollo era, we're just throwing money to just have a genitalia measuring contest, basically, right? And that wasn't sustainable, which is why the Apollo program ended after Apollo 17. It was like, we can't really keep doing this.
You mean like as a business revenue sustainable?
Well, that's way in the future, but as far as like a government program still, and exploration and scientific, there's still things we can be doing that can make it so it could actually be profitable to have probes on the moon, producing fuel, producing, aluminum. Literally, the book Artemis is like a pretty legitimate idea of a way that could eventually become in space resources could be worth a lot of money. But we're not even talking about that. We're just talking about like taking some missions to the moon, getting humanity back on the moon, and in a form that's not like, billions and billions and billions of dollars a launch. And yet we're talking about using a rocket that costs $2 billion a launch. Right. That's not sustainable. If you want to talk sustainability, we talk about getting it down to like, where a launch is not much more than going up to the International Space Station today. Because people don't really bat an eye at the cost of the International Space Station, right? But obviously, if we start spending $2-3 billion per launch, and we do that twice a year to go to the moon, people are going to be like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but that cost has to come way down. It has to be well under $1 billion before people would have any enthusiasm about it and not just think it's a giant waste of taxpayer money.
Right. You can think of a lot of things to do with that money that could fix things locally down here on Earth.
And especially with things happening the way they are right now, there's going to be a lot of economic stimulus that's going to be required to keep the worst effects from happening. I
mean, yeah, this may be the nail in the coffin here for SLS then, won't it? I mean, like some of the people, the economists that are talking about the impact to the global economy from the event happening right now, they're talking. I mean, some people are more sensational than others, but definitely back to the Great Recession era hit, as well as back. People are saying Great Depression type era stuff, and you're just looking at it going, man, that's so. A lot of things are going to be slowing down here, and with something like this, the outlook here is not very great for it. Right.
I think this will be one of those things that gets finally put on the shelf, and it'll be...
Yeah, you look at it and go, it makes sense.
At this point, I don't know who's going to be approving this rocket that is still so far behind and so far over schedule and so far over price and with no real intended purpose other than trying to do the Artemis program within a potential 2-year term for a president, which trust me, I am Mr. Please take us back to the moon. I want humans walking on the moon again now, like yesterday, please. But now just seeing this all come out, seeing this all really be drilled in, it just makes no sense to do it with SLS. I'm sorry. And I've tried and I love us. Like I've wanted to see it fly. I've been a card carrying sunk cost fallacy because we've been so far into this thing that I've wanted to see the stupid thing fly. But I wanted that like last year. I wanted that maybe at the end of this year, but slipping into next year and with another like billion down the drain, I'm sorry. It just does not. It no longer makes sense. Think about what Blue Origin and SpaceX could do with $1 billion cash injection into their programs. It'd be insane. And I know that's not always the way this stuff works. And that's, people always ask me that. They're always like, why don't they just give that money to SpaceX and Blue Origin? Like it doesn't work that way. It's not going to go back into the system like that. If it's not used for this, it will likely just get totally cut from NASA's budget, right? But
General
at this point,
fund or something.
It's not really going to NASA. It's not really going to anything.
I mean, throw it at the STEM projects that they cut,
Right.
What was it, it went from $100 million in STEM funding to zero?
To zero.
Yeah, come on.
But that's the problem is it won't likely get redistributed. That's just not how that stuff works.
You could be like, look, SLS, you could do without some of this. Let's make sure future generations give a crap. Okay,
Right.
And let's get them excited about this and give them the education and the things they need. Mark Rober can only do so much to get the kids in,
But let me be clear. A lot of people were saying, well, let's just fund Starship, and Starship could do the Artemis mission by 2024, which is what they're trying to target. Personally, even if they had all the money in the world thrown at Starship right now, I don't think it's going to be human ready for moon missions by 2024, personally. Yeah. I mean, but I think it would be faster and quicker than SLS potentially, and definitely cheaper. But there's a lot of things that would need to go into certifying that for human flight, a lot of practice runs. Although at this pace...
I feel like money isn't the problem with Starship.
Right.
It's not like just throwing more money at it would solve all the problems. It's just these things take time,
Yep. And even when you're building them at a pace that no one's ever seen before.
Right.
Speaking of...
Right.
Have you guys been seeing... They're now... Okay. I feel like I haven't really had a chance to talk about Starship too much. But, of course...
Can I just say I like this episode because Tim is just doing all the talking?
Well, he has 4 weeks to make up.
I know. Yeah, me and Joe are just like, oh, this is nice. Great.
Sorry.
I'm going to go grab a sandwich.
This is just... Oh, man. Sorry, guys. Please interrupt me because I'm really sick of talking.
I'm enjoying this.
I feel like I've had a lot to get off my chest because I've just been watching this stuff in the background and haven't had a time to catch you guys up on it. So...
or you're sitting there like, you're getting everything wrong.
No, actually, well, I didn't even listen to last week's episode. I've been a terrible person.
How could you?
Well, I wasn't on it, so what's the point of it? No, just kidding.
Because he's a terrible person. He just said it. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right.
So this brings us up to Boca Chica gal, of course, Mary, who has been documenting literally every day, every minute of this stuff out of Boca Chica on behalf of NASAspaceflight.com and on behalf of all space enthusiasts. She's just been done such a great job, along with everyone else down in the area. She's been capturing them building Starship number 3 already, and look at this. She got an awesome shot of looking down. This is the what Elon's kind of been calling the thrust puck. This is where the engines will attach to the backside of this giant dome that they're flipping in this video. You can see that's the thrust puck where they'll be mounting 1 to 3 Raptors. It's kind of been up in the air a little bit. Likely, hopefully 3 by the time this one's ready to fly. So this is they're calling it serial number 3. They took serial number 2 out to the pad, which was just another structural test. And they basically took it up to operating pressure, and it held together really well. After, remember, serial number 1 was the one that did the rapid decompression. Serial number 2, they went out and double checked their new welding techniques and made sure that the thrust puck would survive. And now we're seeing this actually stack. So this is going on top right now as we speak, basically, or yesterday. This is going on top of the stack. Look at this. So they're already stacking. This will be the one that hopefully will be doing the static fires, some small hops. I don't know yet about the big full-blown 20-kilometer hop, but this will definitely be intended to be a hopping flight article. And so think about what we've seen in the last 2 months. Literally like two full-size prototypes be whipped together, and one and actually kind of two, because they had that star popper, people were calling it, or star bopper. I don't remember what people were. Yeah, but another small test tank. So they've really just been cranking. Look at the pace at which they're iterating on. They're going to be blowing up and making more prototypes this year than so far in 3 or 4 months.
They're going to be blowing up?
What was that?
Did you say they're going to be blowing up?
Yeah. They've already blown up
all ways.
Two. They've already...
I want to go see that. If they do another, because they did it with for the abort test. Although there's no abort system here.
There's no abort, but no, they popped 2, 3. Let's see, Mark 1, they popped, Star Popper, whatever they popped. I mean, they just keep intentionally taking these things out to the thing, just seeing how much it can handle. And here's the thing, I'm guessing this stuff always happened with Falcon 9 tanks too, but they just did it where people couldn't see it at McGregor, or somewhere else.
Quadge.
So pretend, with Falcon 1 probably, we're actually able to witness them doing these things, but we're seeing them do it in weeks time.
Versus
every 2 weeks. They're
Blue Origin, right? Where it's completely...
Right. So
that is what's funny to me, is they have just completely opposite ways of doing things. Blue Origin's so secretive, and it's like, ooh, we saw a fairing half. Wow, and then SpaceX is just like, hey, let's set your cameras up over here, and let's just blow some stuff up.
I'm half guessing that they're setting up a coffee stand for all the people that are filming. Hey guys, we're gonna put the bathrooms over here. Please form a line. Be cordial to each other.
Yep. So basically, this is the opposite of, it. This is just nuts to see a company building and prototyping and having it be cheap enough and quick enough of a build that they don't care if it blows up. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
It's cool, learn from it.
Yeah. Well, so this might be a good opportunity to jump into the why don't they just that we have this week.
Cool.
So this came from Trevor in our Discord, one of our Patreon dudes. Thank you, Trevor. He shared this link. Let me see if I can pull it up here. I always get nervous.
Oh, wait. Hang on. Did you say why don't they just?
Oh, go for it.
Why don't they just do this? Why don't they just do that?
Did you guys miss me?
Was that in a major or minor key?
It's major.
Ooh.
It's major.
Good question.
Oh, I see what you're doing. My old major minor.
We're gonna have to show that someday, but I think everybody's gonna be afraid of you. I was a little afraid of you after I saw that. and we were sharing an Airbnb at the time. Okay, so this is what was shared with me. Okay, so again, this came from Trevor, but this was on YouTube under Tiger Talar, and Trevor said he did not do this, but it says, why don't they just, in the title there. So I don't know if this was directed for us or what, but anyway.
What came first? The why don't they just,
I'm not sure.
This video?
So anyway, this is basically showing a spiral welding, I guess, system or protocol,
machine,
whatever the right word is here, just to show you could just pull stainless steel right off the roll.
Oh, and it's welding it as it goes, kind of like a sewing machine.
Now, this is the first one that I've seen that's an actual visualization of what something like this might look like. But I've gotten a lot of questions, and I've seen a lot of questions on Twitter and whatnot. So that's why I thought this might be worth talking about, because I've had so many people ask about it. Why don't they do some kind of spiral thing like this? So obviously, Tim, you're the expert here. My thought is the rocket is more than just a tube. You can make a tube out of this possibly, but it's still, it's still just a hollow tube.
Okay, and it's stainless steel, right?
Yep.
Basically,
yep.
It's not like some exotic weird metal.
No, for now it's literally 301. Some parts are going to be 304, and then a special thing that SpaceX is working on.
What was the movie I watched where? Oh, we watched Avatar recently. That's how bad it's got for us in isolation here, because that movie is officially terrible. But
it's Pocahontas in space.
With the Smurfs.
It's Fern Gully in space, and apparently they got sued for James Cameron. Anyways, but in it, the metal, the material they're after. Do you guys remember what it's called?
Unobtainium.
Unobtainium.
Yeah. That's right.
What? What kind of idiocracy? Oh my God.
Hey, I kind of
Anyways.
love that. It's unobtainable, except for on that planet.
Anyways.
Yep.
And it causes
so-
mountains to float.
So we should probably
So-
be describing this, by the way, for those just listening.
Oh,
It's
right,
basically
yeah.
a sheet of a roll, big roll of stainless steel being rolled out into this machine that then spiral welds it and puts it into like imagine like a roll of toilet paper. You know how the cardboard and the toilet paper goes up in a spiral?
yeah, there you go.
It's basically doing that, and you just weld one continuous seam. You could literally weld it and very, very, very quickly with automatically. It's a great why don't they just?
But what about, okay, so if you just have a straight piece of metal like that, will it go at that angle? Or
Oh yeah, it comes
will there
in
be an
sheets. It comes in big
overlap?
rolls like this anyway. Basically, it is thin enough to roll it.
No, but
have
I
to do
mean,
that
just like
anyway.
if you try to roll it, won't there be an overlap with the layer below it?
So you can see right here, they kind of slice it in half,
At some
and then
point,
it kind
yeah,
of
like,
evens it out. Is that kind of what you're talking about, Ben? Like it, so then
Yeah,
you got like a
okay.
straight edge on the top?
Yeah, exactly. Because like when you start it out, it's going to be, it just seems like
Oh,
a
right.
weird.
yeah.
like
At some
they're-
point, you do cut it, and that'd be easy. That'd be very trivial.
Right. Yeah, why not do this? I don't know. Because it wouldn't be as strong? I don't know.
I guess,
'Cause you
well, I
need
know
to put
they're
other
dealing with
bits
the
along the way.
welding. They've got to perfect the welding first before they could even consider something like this.
Why is that a challenge? Like welding steel is something
Oh.
we've mastered.
Well, that's a pretty good question, actually.
like why would welding?
Yeah,
I know
and they're not
nothing
doing
about
friction
welding, so
stir.
I can't
They're
speak to
not
that.
doing friction stir welding or anything. They're doing pretty much off the shelf stainless steel welding,
Like
which is
MIG welding? Yeah.
pretty. I don't even know if it's
that's
MIG.
what I was asking
Might
because
be TIG
I
or-
actually worked as a welder for like 9 months.
Huh. You can
and
get a job at
steel-
SpaceX.
Yeah, steel is the easiest thing to weld.
Yeah.
Aluminum and some of the, like that's why I asked, because aluminum, if you want to weld that, you have to use a TIG welder, which is just a bit more finicky and takes a bit more skill. But something like this, yeah, you could just have a machine do it. You don't even have to have
Right.
a person do it.
But
And a
but
machine
don't
would do
forget,
it better.
stainless steel is harder than regular steel because of its properties.
okay.
But
This is
not
that
like
30x
not
cold
impossible. I
roll.
mean, there's tons of stuff you can purchase that are stainless steel that are welded. You know.
No, yeah, it's all possible. I mean, metal, from my experience, is real easy to work with. It's so
Yeah.
pliable. It's so like it's not hard to do any of this stuff.
Yeah. So, Joe, you kind of had a thought, didn't you? What was your?
Did I?
You said something like it's not a metal tube. Do you have anything else to add to it? Because I'll give you my rundown.
Well,
then.
I mean, when I see the way they kind of stack things, it seems like one section has a tank and one section has, the bulkhead or whatever. I don't know. I'm using words, but
bulkhead, yep.
it seems like that was my first thought when looking at this. It's like, okay, you've created a tube, but that's not a rocket. There's still a lot of other
Right.
things that go along with it. So I don't know. That's a very uneducated thing to say. Really quick though, Tim, did you see Destin from Smarter Every Day, his tour of the ULA factory?
Yeah, of course.
With
It was
Tori.
awesome.
Well, they talked a lot about welding there at one point,
Yep.
I remember.
Friction stir welding. Yep,
Yeah.
which is kind of what the industry does, where it's beautiful because all you're literally doing is rubbing the two metals until they melt into each other and become like a seamless-ish, piece of metal. Actually, it's super awesome.
Yeah.
You're not even injecting, like welding. You're introducing normally another material, especially like braze welding. You're introducing another material as a flux in between those or whatever. But like friction stir welding, you're literally just pushing two pieces and then rubbing them together until they melt and become one. It's crazy. But so here's what Elon has to say about this topic. If you would go ahead and stop
you wanna
sharing
share?
your screen, I'll
Yeah.
share mine, and I will tell you what Elon has to say about why they don't do this, because this has been asked.
Now, did you just ask him as we were recording, or was this previously?
No, this was on January
happened.
5th. This is January 5th last year. Someone asked this, why don't you just form massive steel skins? You could make it the same way, make a spiral wound pipe, blah, blah, blah. And Elon said, spiral winding is great for uniform thickness. We used that for the Hyperloop vacuum tunnel. However, Starship skin thickness will vary considerably according to loads. So in other words, the bottom rings are thicker than the top rings because the bottom rings have to support
all the weight of the
all the
stuff
weight of the
above
rings
it.
above it. So it's
That's the
not
whole
uniform
water
thickness.
tower thing.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah,
whole
exactly.
water tower thing. So you can't really do that.
That's why they have water tower companies building this stuff out there.
Yeah. You really,
Well,
yeah, exactly.
and you've seen the rings on them, right?
Yep.
That's why there's more rings
Yeah.
on the bottom. Yeah, it makes sense.
It's that same, and it really, when you think about trying to roll out a continuous sheet, you're no longer, like, that doesn't work. And when you're at an angle, it's like, the rings is actually the best way to do it. So,
Well, there you go. There's
So are the
answer.
rings like bigger on the bottom, or just the metal's thicker?
the metal's thicker.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And who knows? They actually might someday. I'm totally speculating. Depending on, because you know how the rings normally get so much, like on those water towers on top of New York City, like you were talking about,
yeah.
where it's like wooden towers, and you see how there's a bunch of tightly bound rings. Maybe later on they can make it so it's really thick, more uniform, thin pieces for the top.
Yeah.
Compared to the ones at the bottom. But yeah. Remember, though, the one of the big challenges about welding these materials and doing all this stuff is that it has to handle cryogenic temperatures. Very, very, very cold, very high pressure, 8.5 bar. So way beyond like what a water tower has to handle. So it's not like just welding a water tower. Bloop, 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 bloop. That's like super trivial compared to cryogenic temperatures, super high pressures, and then also at some point re-entry heating has to be survivable too. So it's just it's taking everything to the absolute extremes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good. Why don't they just?
Yeah,
Because I
Look at
just
that.
learned something.
that's perfect. And we actually knew the
And I
answer.
don't learn things easily, so
we actually had the answer
shows.
for once instead of like, well,
know.
maybe why don't
wild
they?
speculation.
Because we kind of have to take a why don't they just back? Do you guys remember the whole landing Dragon capsule? Why don't they just land it on the net boat, on one of the fairing catching boats? Elon casually mentioned that he would like to try working on that someday.
Oh, really?
It might take a bigger boat, but
We can
yeah,
make bigger boats.
They can make bigger boats. They can get a bigger boat if they think it's worth it to not have to refurbish it.
Man.
Yeah.
Because it would be a lot of money, but
But
Just
if they can,
refurbish
love-
an aircraft carrier.
they love trying to catch stuff from space, so why not let them keep doing it?
speaking
There we
of keeping doing it,
Ooh.
I don't know.
Yeah, is there some Tesla news now that we're like an hour into this thing?
The factory is not keeping doing it in Fremont, California. I talk good and stuff. Due to the event, we shall say. If you guys are just tuning in, we have a code word for the event. You can guess what's happening in the world right now. But Tesla has been told to shut down the California factory to help fight the event. I like calling it the Crown. The Crown is a good one, So yeah, there was kind of a back and forth here where
'Cause it's the king of diseases.
well, because if you look up the Spanish word for crown, you might.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Anyways, so there was this weird thing happening where at the Fremont factory, where they general assembly for basically all Teslas that aren't made in China is done. They were originally deemed an essential business, which is an interesting thing, and that must go back to say World War II or something, where automobile factories started making tanks and stuff like that, and things for the war. Like automobile manufacturing was originally like an essential business in the time of an emergency. And so they were continued operations. They have like 35,000 people working there, some absurd number. And triple that amount of robots and all that. So, and there's actually several facilities, whatever, you get the point. It's now shut down. So no more Tesla cars are currently being made out of the factory, but they still are able to keep a minimal staff. They're just not able to make cars. Perhaps the office workers that are there, or the Fremont factory also is a delivery center. So potentially cars are being delivered. Which cars are being delivered? You might wonder. Well, we now have some Tesla Model Ys being delivered.
Wait, before we go into that, they might be doing something beyond cars. Don't forget. Before I
That's
make you do
true.
your push-ups, because
I have that as well.
okay, you do. Okay, never mind. Keep going. Never mind me. I got used to talking so much. I had to interrupt.
Well, we can jump there. That's fine. So
Let's just
what
filter
else,
through 4 stories in 1 minute here.
Yeah, what else might they be making? You asked there, Tim. They might be making ventilators to help with the event. And so this also could be something that GM is getting involved with. I don't know if they're just jumping on board to really help or to get in the spotlight because Elon said a thing. But hey, we have people with manufacturing facilities, and let's all band together and do some good in the world. And so it sounds like potentially Elon and team may be starting to make ventilators, and that has to do with the HVAC systems in the cars are very advanced, et cetera, et cetera. So they have some experience with these things. I think SpaceX has something as well, right?
Well, people were saying that SpaceX could potentially make rubbing alcohol or make sterile products using some of the things that they have on tap, basically. But I mean, that's totally just people being like, hey, we could use this if there's a shortage of this. I mean, it's not anything really happening.
So here you have Elon, and I believe the original tweet was a response to. Okay, well, here's this guy saying, Raja, Elon is not an idiot, Abbas. Please repurpose your factory to make ventilators, which are needed ASAP. And he said, we will make ventilators if there is a shortage. And Nate Silver from 538, if you guys are familiar with probably the my data science idol there, it was tweeting, and Elon responded, and then they went back and forth. And so apparently it's going to be a thing.
Well, click on Elon's name there and look at the replies, because there's something that actually happened even since we've been recording for Elon, and this is taking it to the next level. Even
let me jump over.
Scroll down. He replied to the mayor of New York, Bill De Blasio. Looks like there's more stuff even, but go down. I don't know. We don't need to talk about that.
Mayor Bill De Blasio. Our country is facing a drastic shortage, and we need ventilators ASAP. We will need thousands in the city over the next few weeks, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, sounds good. We will connect with your team to understand potential needs.
Because right above that, he said that Tesla makes cars with sophisticated HVAC systems. SpaceX makes spacecraft with life support systems. There's the SpaceX connection. Ventilators are not difficult, but cannot be produced instantly. Which hospitals have these shortages you speak of right now? And that was, So,
right, and that was a response to Nate Silver. The original. Right. This was the original. The first one I saw where, so Elon, Elon did say we will make ventilators, and then Nate Silver said there's a shortage now, how many ventilators, et cetera, et cetera.
Crazy. Yeah. Wouldn't that be nuts if they, for the next month, while the factories shut down, if they were able to sit there and crank out ventilators for real? I mean, it'd probably take them 2 weeks to prototype, but still.
Well, the only thing that I wonder about that is how much equipment and experience do the teams there have with plastics?
Yeah, I know nothing about ventilators and what would go into them.
Yeah, I guess that's what the gap in knowledge I have here is, how much of that experience translates over.
Well, think about the interiors of their cars are a ton of plastic.
Yeah, but that's made somewhere and then just installed.
Is it?
Right?
They don't produce those in-house?
Maybe, but typically those things, like a lot of these switches, the little turn stalk and those things, companies like Bosch are typically the ones that make those for everybody.
Yeah, but I think the whole big majority of the actual interior plastics, like the center console and stuff, and the dashboard would be made in house. You'd think.
Yeah, I don't think it's done at Fremont. Maybe it's done somewhere else and then shipped to Fremont. But anyways,
they probably have the supply chain for it at least.
Hopefully. Yeah, and then these designs shouldn't be, super, compared to what they do now, I assume would be much simpler.
And we all know SpaceX is good at rapidly iterating and building things literally turning on a dime and switching up their whole game plan.
Are they going to pressure test the ventilators and just blow them up out there at Boca Chica to see how much they can take?
Meanwhile, Boeing is going to be come out with a plan, and NASA's going to fund it for 7 years from now, and
NASA will have a $1 billion ventilator.
Yeah, that's right.
And a tower to hold it.
It's like the Apple monitor stand for $1,000. It's just like a piece of plastic. You're like, what the hell?
It's not plastic. It's
did you get yours, Tim? Weren't you going to buy that whole setup? Is it in boxes behind you?
Yeah, has been for 3 months.
How? So I think this proves to you that you don't need it.
No, I've literally been gone, literally. And I wanted to wait until my video. I was working on this one video that took 6 months, and I didn't want to change systems in the middle of it. So that's going to be the celebration to myself, is finally opening and installing my new computer when I'm done with this video.
That's like Jenny gives me a hard time every time I go to shoot an event or something.
You buy something new.
I'm like buying a new camera lens, I'm buying a microphone, I'm buying something that I know 100% I'm going to need, and I do not actually need.
See, I'm the opposite. If I've got something coming up, I don't want to take some new camera or system that I'm going to have to figure out and have all these glitches and stuff. I want the thing that I know well, even if it's the crappier thing.
That's smart.
Well, that's kind of why I was like, I'm not going to mess around, because this will take, I'm working on probably switching over to DaVinci Resolve anyway. So I'm going to be switching a whole lot of stuff around. I'm like, I don't want to do that before I produce an hour-long video.
Totally.
You know?
When I got this iMac Pro, which is not as robust as the one that you've got, it was the same thing. It was like, I've got to get like 3 episodes ahead before I can even think about like deconstructing all this and rebuilding it and starting over. It's an ordeal.
It is.
Yeah.
Really
There's
is.
a lot of downtime, with switching. And you know, it's funny, before the event, I was at the brink of signing a lease on a new space and moving into a new studio. But now that's all up in the air, because it's like, I don't know what's happening with my current studio, and you know, the buildings may be shut down for months. Who even, so much uncertainty right now. So something we're not certain about, or we're not uncertain about, is some push-ups that I got to be doing here pretty soon. So
Now that you can't go to the gym.
Well, I've got equipment here. I can't be without a barbell.
Ben Swollen's his entire bedroom is a weightlifting set.
Yeah, that's right. Tesla Model Ys have officially begun being delivered to customers, not just to employees. And Timothy Dodd was correct in his prediction. Benjamin Sullins was incorrect in his assumptions. So the 100 push-up bet is on. Man, I cannot wait for this white one. I got an update yesterday on the website. I filled out all my info, so I should be getting mine soon, hopefully. And those, I'm not getting those wheels, though. I'm getting the upgraded wheels. So this thing is just gorgeous. So they're there. You guys, if you're not, been hiding out, doing some stuff, not been on the interwebs, afraid to catch any kind of events coming your way, I, along with a few others, have posted some first impressions videos. I think I was the first one. I was able to see one of the very first cars being delivered here in San Diego, which I got confirmation was the first delivery of Model Y. So
cool.
Wow.
I don't know why it's so shaky on the screen here. It's just streaming it.
I think you spoke to this later, but this shot right here at the beginning on the other side of the car, it almost looks like it's got the chrome.
Uh-huh.
But it's like it's got a cover on it, right? It's like white.
When it's shipping,
Excuse me. Don't worry, just because I'm coughing, you guys won't get anything.
He's got kids. He's going to be coughing.
Yeah, pause right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, that's about this whole event going on right now. It's a funny thing. Like, if you have kids, I feel like I've been sick for 5 years straight. I don't know what not coughing or having symptoms is, so who even knows what's going on anymore? Okay, so quick side note about how I got to film all this. This was actually before the guy before it was delivered to him. And then later, he, was like, we can walk around the car and have fun, but I don't want you filming with me or anything like that. So that's why the footage wasn't me in the car, wasn't him, any of that. So this was filmed just prior to that, and it had the tape still on it, which was from the which is what they ship it with. So that's why it looks like it's chrome on that side. It's actually just this white tape. And I did post that in the second video I posted, which was a Q&A one. I showed us ripping it off a little bit so you could see. So. But that got certainly up the comment count. That little clip there.
Yeah.
Well, that chrome delete is it's a unique thing to this car that's very different from the others, and it's cool looking.
You like it?
Yeah. I like it. I mean, so that's why when I first saw that, I was like, "No, wait a second, did I see that right?" But you're right. You responded to it in the second video. So
Well,
I
yeah.
mean,
Do they not
people
offer?
don't.
They don't offer any other car yet, right? Not even the X or the S yet.
A Chrome delete thing?
Yeah.
No.
Wait, what about the new Model 3? Because they offered black rims and stuff now.
Now, as of when?
Like as of last month or so,
Huh?
or
Interesting.
maybe 2 months. They offer these really nice
the
black
sport
rims.
ones. Yeah. So the one I'm ordering here is this white one. And you can see it's blacked out already. Now, what do you call it though? Since it's not, I mean, it's not a Chrome delete because it wasn't Chrome.
Because there's no chrome. I had to say blacked out or I don't know.
And so
It's still called Chrome delete.
this is the configuration we're going with here. So you've got these black 20-inch induction wheels, which I think look pretty
That's
clean.
that's the Stormtrooper car.
Yeah, that's right. And man, this thing is special. It is really cool. The only knock I have against this car right now is the price, really. That's the only thing. It's still, and that's because it's still just these two ones, the long range and the all-wheel drive long range and the performance. So, they announced in the video at the unveiling that there will be a rear-wheel drive long-range version and a standard version of this as well. So the standard range, I believe, was 39,000 out the door, and you're seeing the price here with the savings. So 39,000, I believe it was for the standard range, and what was it, 45 maybe for the long-range rear-wheel drive. So, right now this is still a very expensive car, I would say.
So
but
what
other than
are
that,
the
it's
potential
fantastic.
savings that it's talking about there? Is that gas savings or?
Yeah.
Yeah, cost. Yeah, it's gas
And
savings.
incentives.
Oh, okay, all right.
I don't know what this minus $2,000 incentives are.
State maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it could
It'd be-
depend.
That'd be hard to guess though, because
Yeah.
those things change. And then a lot of them, like in California, for example, it's they kind of changed it differently. Where you used to be, you got a $2,500 state rebate, and they actually would send you a check. Like I got that from my Model 3. But now they have it to where you either get, so first off, if you make too much money, you don't get jack. And then, which I think is lame. But now it's either, so let's assume you don't make 500 grand or more a year. It's you either get the clean air vehicle HOV lane access. So in California, you get these stickers you can put on your car, which other than being hideous, they allow you to drive in the HOV lane with only a single person in there. And that's great, especially if you drive in LA a lot. Like that is literally a game changer, like hours of time saved every day if you're living in LA. So, but you can either get that or the $2,500 rebate. You don't get both. Yeah, so that was a change I saw recently, and who knows, they may change it again soon. But then, there's income restrictions and all that. So for Tesla to put anything but gas savings on there, I think is kind of presumptuous, bold. I don't know what the right.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, whenever I see those, I'm kind of like it definitely needs that asterisk, doesn't it?
Yeah, like low chance of being accurate. I don't know how do you say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So something from your video that stood out to me and was kind of surprising / shocking was that it's almost the same size as the Model X. Like you had it parked right next to it, and it's like really close to the same size. I was going, that shocked me.
Yeah, it's super close to the same size. Yeah, and it feels much bigger inside than the Model 3, according to the Electrek stuff, because they posted the manual for it online, and so and it had all the dimensions. They said it was 1.7 inches more headroom in the back and 0.7 more inches in the front than the Model 3, but I don't know, maybe just because you're sitting up high or whatever, it feels quite a bit bigger than that. It definitely doesn't feel like the Model X in terms of the size on the inside, but that's probably just because the Model X has that giant monorail windshield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, by the way,
does it have
I found
the same? Sorry.
Go ahead. I was gonna say I found a defect about the monorail windshield that just adds to my frustration with the Model X. What happens if you were trying to look through a piece of glass and that piece of glass bends?
Refracts.
Yeah.
It changes the light a little bit, right? So at night, driving in a Model X, because of that giant windshield, when certain lights, like a tail light specifically, have like this double vision thing happening. Yeah, and I don't know, Tim, you borrowed one for a while.
But that happens actually with a lot of cars, I think that's a factor of the windshield with different panes, different layers. I don't think it has to do, because that curve would have to be like the focal point. So you'd have to be like way back, like I don't think it has to do with that giant curve.
It might have been because you were drunk.
Oh, that could be it. Yeah.
And you were on that.
You got to rule that out.
Yeah.
So anyways,
I have a question. So I think you alluded to in that video that you were like, this almost brings into question, like it's really almost a Model X, like a simplified Model X. And it made me realize, like, maybe if the margins are way better on this and they can sell way more, what's the point of making a Model X anymore?
Yeah. I mean, in the video, I said that. I said that I wouldn't be shocked if they just end of life the Model X. They just stop making it. Because not only does Tesla factor in the cost of the production of the vehicle, but the maintenance on those are, 10x what they are in a Model S and Model 3. Like, if you go to a service center and you get to know the guys, they will all tell you they hate that car. Just because it's in there all the time. They've got all the, you know what I mean?
There's way more moving parts.
And it seems dumb, right? But like, if I paid $150,000 for a car with these dope doors and they squeak, I'm taking it in. And if you fix it and then a year later they squeak again, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
Dude, that's the cost of a house in a lot of parts of this country.
Of course.
And it's just so, like if I buy a Ferrari and there's even anything remotely wrong with it, hell yeah, I'm taking it back and you're fixing it. Because, you know what I mean, you're setting the bar, the standard so incredibly high that it's just, it's set up to fail.
My dad does that with his Honda Odyssey. Like, if he hears a squeak, he's taking it in. He's like, man, it's rattling in the back. Like, I don't remember how many times when I was little, we'd have like a rental car because my dad took the van into the shop to fix a rattle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's understandable, like, especially at $150,000.
Now, I do think there's something to be said about the other aspects of that the Model X has in terms of like just the interior with the different screens and the different layout, kind of
and the flagshipness of it.
Yeah, like I think that they could make a more flagship SUV, but I would probably just end of life this one, earmark that as like an interesting vehicle in history, that we'll see in collectors' showrooms 20 years from now. And make, like, I think they should just make a really, like, an actual SUV.
Yeah, more like the Rivian.
Yeah, I was going to say the R1S from Rivian. That thing looks, man, that is killer. Like, that thing, I love, that to me is like, oh, an actual electric SUV. There you go. Yeah. Like, and Tesla would kill it if they decided to do such a thing.
Make a full-size, proper 7 seats, big ol' 7 or 8 seater.
Square off the Cybertruck. Yep. Boom, done.
Seriously. Well, I think Cybertruck is going to be their new poster child as far as like the wow weird factor, because that's what the Model X I think was like just kind of like throwing in something out into the public, being like, look at this crazy door thing, trying to really gain attention for the company. Now I think Cybertruck's done and will be doing that enough that they can kind of keep changing their lineups. The X, I'll bet they'll phase it out by the time Cybertruck comes out.
I think the Model S needs a refresh, and the Model S, like, I think that is a fantastic vehicle that does have a place out there. I think the Model 3 is also incredible, and for many more people will always be the better choice over a Model S. And then the Model Y right now is, in my mind, 100% a better choice than a Model X. Like, if you're looking for one of these. Now, the only thing it's lacking is that 7-seat option. However, you can buy a used Model S with rear-facing jump seats for kids if you need it. Yeah. Because I'll tell you what, getting 7 adults in the Model X is not an easy task either. So it's a thing where Tesla really doesn't have like a legit SUV. Rivian is the only one that are making ones that I think are
full-size SUV, because SUV definition varies a lot.
Well, okay, yeah. My understanding of a traditional definition there was it's basically an enclosed hatch built on a truck chassis,
like a Suburban.
Like the Model X is definitely not that. So, anyways. I could definitely see that. So I think right now, like, if you're looking Model X or Model Y, I would 100% go Model Y. The only time you wouldn't be able to do that, is if you have a family of 6 or 7 people. In which case, you can just wait for the 7-seater and who knows, or get 2 cars.
Right. Yeah. So, are you going to be producing more Model 3 videos? Is that what you're working on? Or Model Y videos? Is that what you're doing these days? Just
basically.
Trying to transition to what videos are you working on?
Yeah. Next week's video is should you buy the Model Y? Looking at the cost of it, looking at other competitor or kind of other options in that space. Since I know no one's going to watch it, so I'll just give you the answer. I actually don't think it's a smart buy right now, unless you plan on keeping it for a long time, because a used Model S will give you almost all the same functionality in terms of seating, in terms of storage, in terms of range, and all that stuff for at least $10,000 to $15,000 cheaper. And of course, the things you're missing there are V3 charging. Fine, V3 charging is still not the norm. You'll miss Autopilot 2 and Hardware 3, which, unless you spend the additional $7,000 on with the Model Y purchase, which pushes the price up really, really high, like $70,000, you wouldn't be noticing really much of a difference between the base level Autopilot in Model Y versus the Autopilot 1 you'd get in a Model S. So I think it's an interesting thing to consider. If this is your first Tesla, you're looking at it, there are options here.
Right. Cool.
What about you guys?
Joe?
I'm talking about the event. I've been researching it and staying up late. So you can probably see the luggage under my eyes right now. All this week trying to get that out. I really, it's funny. I got so many people requesting it, let's say a couple of weeks ago, and some of them very aggressively, like, why are you talking about this? Yeah, like angrily at me, like, why haven't you done? And it's really difficult for me because my videos take at least a week, to put together, and it's changing so fast. Like every single day, the news was different. So it's like I don't generally cover news topics for that reason, but right. It's gotten to the point now where it's like I was saying before, if you don't talk about it, it's just weird, So I did do an interview. Here's the one thing that might save this video, I guess. But I did an interview with a guy named David Quammen who wrote a book called Spillover that's all about animal viruses that mutate and become human viruses, like Ebola, the H1N1 and the swine flu, bird flu, and all that. Anyway, he's a reporter for National Geographic, and he followed the Ebola crisis in Africa and all that, and he wrote this book, Spillover. He did an hour-long interview with me, so I'll be sharing clips from that. I'll release the rest of the video, the interview, later next week. But
sweet.
Yeah. So that's kind of there's a million different ways you can cover it, but that's kind of where I chose to cover it, is from that that spillover. Zoonosis is what they call it when it transfers from animal to human, and the fact that not to sound doom and gloom, but this will not be the last one of these that we see. Right. There's going to be more of this,
of course. Yeah. There always is. Well, in other news, guess what I'm finally doing? I'm finally I'm finally putting a video on YouTube.
Oh, really? Oh.
I still exist as a YouTuber. Yeah. My pollution video, I sent it out to patrons last night, and it's in the Discord channel to give me some last tips. And we found a lot of little things that I'm tweaking today, but got most of them done. And it will be released by this weekend. Hopefully, I'm hoping tomorrow morning. So by the time you guys are listening to this podcast, hopefully my 55-minute long video on how much do rockets pollute, that has been the worst rabbit hole of anything I've ever done in my life, ever. I hope the worst things I promised two others about not just, because this one's focusing on the air. Then I was going to do one on space debris and another one on like ground pollution, when they like crash into the ocean and stuff.
And you're like, no, I'm done.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, great. Those ones shouldn't be nearly as bad of a topic to cover. Because this is like so much chemistry and so many like finding weird numbers that are hidden in some weird thing. Ugh, it's just been an absolute nightmare.
How do you release it to them in advance? On YouTube or Vimeo? Or?
I put a separate, I have a separate just unlisted channel that I just send them a link that they can check over, and watch it and let me know. And they do great. I'm so thankful for the people that are willing to watch a 55-minute long video as a favor to me, basically. Yeah, in some ways, you get an early preview, but really, if you're watching a video that's in peer review, like, you're doing me a service. So thank you to the people that do that, because they find it's the stuff that they normally would find in a YouTube comment anyway, probably.
Yeah.
But this way I get it out there to avoid when it goes public and find the errors that I would lose sleep over later. So
yeah. So just real quick, I release my videos early to patrons, but it's usually like a day before it goes out, because that's the schedule that I'm on.
Right.
I'm just finishing it. So I do get great feedback from them, but it's always too late, and it's kind of like, okay, well, I guess I'll know that that's wrong when it goes out. I'll know what to expect in the comments. I would love to be able to get ahead and be able to get that feedback.
I'm only 2 days.
It is fantastic feedback.
There's only 2 days in advance for that. Well, and I think I don't have an upload schedule, so if something major happens in this process, okay, it gets delayed a day or two.
Right.
No big deal for me.
I've tried that before, and a lot of what I got was, good job. I'm like, no, I want you. I'm like, cool, thanks, but I want you to be like, hey, you said that wrong, or that's not how that works, or whatever.
Yeah, back when I did a lot of screenwriting, I would write a script and I would give it to somebody, and I would actually get mad at them if they read it and were like, I liked it.
Yeah, right.
It's like, screw you, man. Come on, rip it apart.
Yeah.
Some
people can't handle that, though. Some people can't handle, because to me, it's like, whatever, it can always be better. No matter how good a thing is, it can always be better. So the thing that's useful is not good job, but it's, hey, you could have said that better, or that's not quite right, or you forgot to bring in this. Like the video for next week about the Model Y, I don't at all mention in the video that V3 charging would be an advantage in the Model Y. But I just chalked it up as, I'll put a comment on there that says, hey, yes, you're right. I know you guys are going to jump on me for that. But in reality, currently it doesn't make a big difference unless you live in like the two places that have them, or if you're
they're popping up everywhere.
Whatever.
There's in Florida now, there's 3 different places that have V3 all of a sudden overnight. Yeah. So they're popping up quick. And I've been I used the one in Nashville, I think by the time in 6 months, I think that'll definitely be a stronger consideration than it is right now.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's coming, but it's one of those things where I left it out of the video, and then I was like, but whatever.
Yeah.
like save $20,000 and still get to use superchargers. I think I don't know if it's a strong argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyways.
But there you go. That was a long one,
That's it, folks.
I think.
We did it.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, everybody
Stay
out there,
healthy.
stay safe, be good, take this seriously, listen to experts.
Yep.
We'll get through it.
And just be patient. We should last note on that is, I know the hard thing for especially the 3 of us, probably for perspective, is we are self-income based on people watching YouTube videos. So our perspective is different. There's a lot of people that are terrified right now because they're in the service industry. They're literally going to be not getting paychecks until this thing's over. And that is terrifying. I want to encourage all of you to just be mindful of each other. Be encouraging to each other. Reach out in need. If you need something, your family's struggling, speak up.
Big tips. Give your delivery drivers tips.
Oh, absolutely.
Big tips.
Absolutely. Still try to, buy from your local restaurants if you can, if it's allowed, and all that stuff. It's
One, if you want to look at a silver lining or whatever, is that people do seem to be taking care of each other a bit more and being a bit more compassionate, I've noticed, and reaching out and we use Zoom here to talk to each other, but suddenly people are realizing the importance of friendships and community and all that. So
it almost reminds me, we had a power outage here in San Diego, I don't know, a few years ago, where it was literally from Yuma to LA. So you're talking 2.5, maybe close to 3 million people without power. And nothing, maybe if you had a backup generator or whatever. And it was a really weird time, but what we did was we all, in the building I lived in downtown, we all went out to the courtyard and brought guitars and wine and snacks and just got to know each other.
Yeah, that's cool.
So obviously we don't want to encourage people doing that, but
gathering like that. But
in terms of having trying to strengthen whatever connection you do have with your local community, online or whatever you can do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting kind of weird time. So
Yeah.
It
Stay
certainly
safe, people.
clarifies things.
Yeah. Stay
Yep.
safe. We'll be here, hopefully providing entertainment and distraction for you guys. I think that's our
we may or may not see you in
Our even more ludicrous
more ludicrous future.
future. Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you like what we do and you want to kind of help get it out there, you can give us a nice review on any of your podcast streaming platforms, whichever one you use. That kind of helps get it out there. Also, we do have a Patreon set up, so you can join us there at patreon.com/ourludicrousfuture. You can get your name in the credits, meet a whole other group of like-minded people. It's a lot of fun. We do appreciate it. We'll see you there. Thanks.